Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar, which is focused on crafting effective prompts for generative AI models. This is a part of a series we have been doing for free webinars for several months now on different topics of generative AI and AI in general. And before we get started, as people are trickling in, just quickly wanted to share a few resources and things which we have. Today's webinar is brought to you by bigdatatrunk. Bigdatatrunk is a corporate training services company since 2008. We focus on corporate and some public trainings. We have around 400 trainings with a team of great instructors, and have been happy to be serving really Fortune 500 companies in the US, Bay Area in person and other places, as well as live instructor-led training on several different technologies, mostly focused on AI, data science, and bleeding edge tech stuff, but also business development and soft skills as well. Along with this, we just wanted to quickly give you all a few more resources which might be useful for you. We as a team have curated a lot of free trainings, and I'm going to share all these links in the chat in a little bit. So there are a lot of trainings which are focused on entry-level tech if you are trying to get in. So all of these is available on our website, whether it is cloud, it is Agile, Python, machine learning, and so on and so forth. So I'll share this link. And these are some which are created by our team, some things which we have, some things curated. We just hope to just give our 2 cents to the community with all the challenges in economy, and people may not be having budget to really have paid trainings and things. So we're trying to see if we can help out folks through these kind of different resources as well. We also have different meetup groups and webinars happening. So I'll share the links, all of these links. And there are different kind of groups which we have partnered with officially with Google, with Microsoft, and some third-party groups as well, generic groups, non-vendor agnostic groups. And you can join those if you are wanting to join future webinars. Most of these are posted in this as well. We typically have all our recordings posted on this page on our website. So if you want to refer to past of this, the last one we spoke about responsible AI, LLMs, decoding LLMs. So you see, we have been going through a series of different webinars focused on generative AI and AI. And today's topic is crafting effective prompts. We also have the next session planned. So that's going to be an AI augmented data analysis on the 27th of March, a month from now. And that is available on all the meetup groups, which I was pointing out on Eventbrite. And all of those links will be available here on this page. So I'll share that page in a bit, as well as it should be coming here any minute. We post all our recordings on YouTube. You can go through these links or directly go to our website, YouTube channel. All those past ones are shared here, available. So those are free resources, things available for everyone. We also have an e-learning option where there are 40 plus courses, different hands-on applications, trainings available e-learning wise, and we have different bundles where you can focus on a particular skill and develop your skill at a very, very, very reasonably priced subscription plan. So for example, if I go to the generative AI course, it has lots of different courses attached together to create a comprehensive generative AI training program. So at a very effectively cost-effective cost of almost $10, you can do a 7-day trial. And if you want to cancel at any point, it can be easily canceled, but this is almost like a few coffee prices, and you have, instead of other places where you get a course for a certain price, it's all bundled, all these courses come together, and you can continue to access this high quality, cutting edge technology courses as well. We do have some public trainings. So if you are interested in just specifically going in live instructor-led training, those are also available. I'll share these things as well. If you are part of an organization which is provides training and has budgets and things like that, if you refer us to your L&D and HR team, we'll be happy to share, give you all a free subscription to 3 months for this. And if that happens, we will be happy to extend that for a year. So in return of, it's a win-win situation. You get a free subscription, as well as we could get a lead and help probably your company as well. We have been helping a lot of Fortune 500 companies in the US for different technologies courses and things like that. So that's a few different resources. I'll be sharing all these links to you all. Moving on to today's topic, crafting effective prompts for generative AI model. We have Aparna, who is our lead instructor on generative AI and AI in general. She has a vast experience in the data AI space, has been doing trainings and things for corporates across the globe. She holds a PhD. She is academically focused into different kinds of education focused and has been sharing the series for quite a while. So I've been happy and glad that she's been able to share that few cents with the team. So with all of that, I'm going to stop the share and give it to Aparna. Thank you, Aparna. Thanks for joining and doing this.
Thanks. And again, good morning or good evening, everybody, depending on where you're joining from. Welcome to the session. Let me just get started with the screen share. Okay. All right. So in terms of, how we'll be going ahead with the session itself, the way it's been planned, I'm going to talk a little about what happens, within a neural network or within a large language model when we actually start putting in prompts and expect the desired kind of responses. Just a little background. So you actually understand why it is that we even need to do that prompt engineering. Probably, cover the prompting techniques first. That's what the overall webinar is about. But maybe, towards like the last 20 minutes, I'd like to have like a mix of the popular Gen AI tools along with like hands-on demos, just so we know which of those tools, what are their strong points essentially, and what sort of use cases are like more relevant. ChatGPT probably has what has gotten all of us here. It's almost like how Google is synonymous with searching. ChatGPT has does that in terms of generative AI. But then right now there are all these extremely good, great quality alternatives as well, which have certain strengths. So that's also one thing that I'd like to actually show you all as we progress through the session. Right. Little background. We won't be getting too much into the technicality of it. As we are aware, most of these models are definitely, things that have been already pre-trained on massive amounts of resources. So for example, any of the LLMs that we are probably going to be interacting with, they have been trained on billions of tokens, pretty much the entire data available on the internet. The earlier models, probably back in 2017 and 18 when we started, were dealing with around 100 million parameters, whereas right now we are upwards of 5 to 700 billion parameters. So we've made explosive growth in that area. Also the amount of hardware resources that go into the whole training process itself. So maybe this is probably a stage that we are not really involved with, but a lot of pre-training and fine-tuning happens with any of these models before they are ready for us for use as such. Our involvement and maybe our usage comes in at this stage. We put in a new prompt. Lot of these really good systems do some sort of content moderation and prompt moderation as such. Is it like really sensitive information that we are asking for, or any sort of the possibility of maybe generating some obscene content? If those likelihoods do exist, a lot of the times they do come back with a response that it can't be done. So there is that little bit of prompt moderation that happens. Moving on, the part that we are really interested in, a lot of interaction with the model itself, wherein it slowly takes some time to create the kind of response based on the prompt we have put in, which is once again checked, both for the relevance and for how accurate it is in terms of the prompt that we have actually put in, and then coming back to us, with the response. This is a very short demo again, mostly, the kind of the technical stuff that happens within the model itself. Doesn't have any audio component, but okay. So for example, the minute we put in a prompt, the model actually breaks it down into all of these tokens. So now supposing, I give it this prompt and say, go ahead and like write a story or fill up this sentence in a way that makes the maximum sense. So it's going to break it up into individual words, what we refer to as tokens. And then these tokens are converted into this numerical fashion, what is referred to as embeddings. All the embeddings put together, one averaged out common embedding for the entire prompt that we have put in is actually what gets into the model. So any sort of deep learning architectures, it's ultimately numbers, that they understand and they work with. It could be patterns within images. With NLP text, either in the text mode or in the speech mode, they're all converted into these numerical embeddings and then get fed into the system itself. And this is where, a lot of that additional work happens. One is each word by itself, and then where is it within that entire prompt, how relatively important is it? Also, what is all the background context that probably we are trying to convey through the prompt? So there are these 3 or 4 additional knowledge points that go into the creation of these embeddings itself. The next part is probably, a whole lot more technical, attention-based mechanisms that really capture, okay, in this entire statement, maybe that word bank also in relation to a river and not that other kind of financial bank that we typically talk about is what is most important. So among all the given series of terms, one relatively important, and then which one holds the most importance in terms of deciding what new word should actually come up. That happens through the attention mechanisms, and then we have multiple feed forward layers which then go ahead and based on their pre-training try and figure out most common or most possible terms. So let me just that very last bit, play that once again. So after having figured out what are probable terms that can really come up, okay, it then decides which of those has the most maximum probability, and that is what it gives us back as a response. One other thing to keep in mind is, all these models, in fact, craft responses on a word by word basis. So it's not like they're kind of creating the entire paragraph and then sending it out, although it looks like that. They're in fact calculating probabilities of every single term, what is like the most best next likely word, and that's how the prompts are being, or the responses are being generated back for us. One thing you'll definitely notice, and this has pretty much been in the news the last probably 3 or 4 weeks, we have seen way too many developments happen in this space. Gemini 2.0 got released maybe like a week back. It's been a lot of talk about DeepSeek, one of the really good lightweight reasoning models that has been released just like under a month, really shaken up the market, in fact. And then just yesterday, or maybe the day before, Grok 3, the third variant from X, Elon Musk did that release, and it has like achieved better than human baseline performance in majority of the really tough tasks like advanced math reasoning, being able to build very good quality code, also being able to think through a problem in a very, very detailed fashion. So both DeepSeek and Grok that way have this additional capability. And even, the latest model from Google, Gemini 2.0 Flash as well. So, again, probably, once we move ahead and finish up the prompts themselves, we'll just look at probably one sample each from all of those other Gen AI tools as well. Okay, just kind of finishing up on this. So you see, maybe even till let me bring out the pointer again. 2022 or 23, competition level math, maybe graduate level math or that level of language comprehension was still not really achieved. But we've crossed this right now, just like within the span of like the last month itself. Very good image classification from 2012 onwards. We've started having multimodal models. If you notice, probably May of last year onwards, being able to converse with those systems, being able to show it images and then asking for visual reasoning on top of that. So in multiple modes, we've been able to actually interact with a lot of these Gen AI devices. But now, in terms of doing extremely good quality and very accurate kind of responses in areas, a lot of times you also keep hearing specific areas now, more than what PhDs have knowledge in any one specific area. A lot of these tools have gotten to that stage where they can build that level of responses. Okay, we'll talk about some of these basic prompt techniques that can make the whole prompts like a lot more effective, give you the exact desired kind of response, and then move on and take a look at some of them in practice. So anytime you put in a question, or as we refer to it, a prompt, the LLM, like we've seen in that previous section, breaks it down into those tokens, creates that whole number embedding kind of a version. Based on that, goes back to its training data, figures out what is like most similar to the question that we have asked, and then gives us back the response. So in terms of the prompt itself, probably like as a starting point, the more clearer and the more simple your prompts are, as long as you can keep them really, really specific, and not like introduce any ambiguity or not confuse the LLM itself, the better the quality of the response that you can expect back. And why would we even want to do prompt engineering? If these like models are that smart, can they really get what we are trying to ask for, or what is it that we expect in terms of the answer? A lot of times, because they have been trained on such a vast amount of training data, unless you're really, really specific and you're able to tell it clearly what sort of output is expected, you might be getting a very generic kind of a response that might not really fit your needs. So whether it is about controlling the output or actually customizing it for very specific use cases, a lot of times, let's say from a work perspective, you want analysis that happens at like an expert data analyst level, or you would want very good quality health tips, probably what you would expect again from like an experienced nutritionist. So being able to customize the overall response in terms of very specific use cases, that is possible only through doing very effective prompt engineering. Obviously improves the efficiency and quality of the response. To a certain extent, the way you fashion your prompt as well might help in reducing some of that inherent bias. It's been always known, the models are only as good as the training data that they have been shown. And unfortunately, majority of the data that comes in from the internet does have a lot of internal bias that goes into the system itself. There are known cases of lot of gender bias, lot of race bias, racial bias, all that within the training data sets itself. For example, this was maybe like truer maybe a little while ago. If you'd ask for a story involving a doctor and a nurse, by default the doctor would be male and the nurse would be female. Maybe that's the kind of instances that show up most often in the training data sets. So while you're writing the prompt, you can put in a lot more clearer specific instructions to somehow overcome this kind of bias as well. Also, the way you write the prompt, and supposing you ask it, please behave in this really polite manner when you create back the response, helps with, in fact, improving the overall quality and making it more user friendly as well. Okay, so certain aspects that you can look for in terms of like making the prompt a lot more effective, and we'll talk about these in more detail. What sort of tone are you using? How do you want it to create the response? In what style? Does it need to be something that is very formal, or does it need to be something that is like scientific that you can probably put in a report? Also being able to give it some additional contextual info. When you put in a prompt, I'm trying to use this response to be able to explain fourth graders, or I'm trying to use this response to probably talk about it like in a graduate level class. So giving a little additional context also will really help in terms of the quality of the response that comes out. At a more beginner level, in terms of what all elements definitely need to go into the prompt itself. One, the actual instruction or the prompt that you want your LLM to answer for you. Keep it as specific as possible. Again, wherever possible, given a lot of external information or additional context, so it is within this context that I'm trying to ask you this question, or this is the audience who's going to be looking at this response. So give it a little more additional information. Then input data, if possible. Now, a lot of cases, in fact, supposing you're interested in doing some sort of image analysis or data analysis on your own proprietary specific data as such. So putting in all that additional input data and then saying, I'm looking for a response mostly based on top of this specific data. That also makes sure the response is like a lot more customized for your purpose. You can always mention what kind of input you are interested in. For example, especially with all the paid tools, this works a lot more better. Give me the output designed in the form of an Excel sheet, or give it to me in the form of a PDF document. Certain places, I have seen this kind of fail with the free variants. Instead, what you can always say is, now supposing, okay, maybe, I'm trying to build a multiple choice quiz. So it gives me the entire content in that text format, right? So I can say, can you format this in a form that I can easily copy paste into an MS Excel sheet? And the response that it gives back then becomes like a lot more easier to actually do the copy paste and avoid doing a lot of these formatting changes that you would want to do. So you can always very clearly ask for either, a file in that exact format, which works well with a lot of the paid variants. If you have like run out of those kind of, queries, if you're on a free version though, you can always say, put it in that form that I can copy paste. And that works really well too. Lot of common use cases, I think, all of us have been doing this from quite some time now already, whether it is putting in huge amounts of text and asking for a summary, or asking for responses to specific questions. Let's say, based on the election that happened, give me these kind of numbers. Actual question answering kind of systems that go into building a lot of chatbots that we interact with, being able to put in text and able to classify it. For example, a lot of these sentiment analyzer kind of functionalities, being able to have like a complete conversation. And with respect to conversation, even like a lot of translation based components that come in. You can put in something in one base language and ask for it to translate it into another language for you in real time. And they've been doing that very well, especially after the 3.5 model has come out. Code generation, again, one extremely good use case that a lot of people are making use of. Um, Obviously, having probably a licensed version of maybe specific tools like, let's say, GitHub Copilot might help you better. But as of now, as long as we can write the prompt really well, even any of these other free variants of tools like, maybe Gemini or DeepSeek as well, can give you really good code generation capabilities. Reasoning is probably the latest, I would say greatest also, in terms of the ability of the LLM models to be able to showcase the entire reasoning that goes behind creating your responses. And we'll take a look at one of those two. Okay. In terms of prompting types, this is from OpenAI. Either you just directly go put in a question and it comes back to you with a response, which is typically referred to as the zero shot style of prompting. Sometimes where we give it one single example, this is how, I want the feedback to be structured, for example, and then you put in your raw data points and it gives you back the feedback exactly fashion in that specific sense. So you could have a lot of one shot way of doing it. Certain times, especially with slightly more complex tasks, it would actually make sense, if we could show it multiple examples, maybe, 3 or 4 different samples of how we would do it, and then ask it to carry on and do the task in that exact same manner for a lot of other prompts. So that would be the idea behind few shot prompting. Okay. Now, for example, the one shots, maybe, just directly put in a prompt, translate this text into French, and then you put in the text, comes back to you with the output. So you're not giving it any additional background context or any other further examples. So the probably, the simplest way that most of us interact with would be this one shot prompting style that we see here, or zero shot, where you don't show it any examples. One shot or n shot, either one to multiple, where you start giving it a few samples or examples, and based on that it is able to customize the response for you. For example, if you'd want to create some sort of creative writing in one specific style, uh, you want like a haiku, let's say, you show it like 2 or 3 samples of how it is done, maybe your own written examples, or maybe copy them from the internet, and then say, now build me a haiku on this specific topic, and it should be able to do that really well, and the response also gets actually better. In terms of zero shot versus a few shot, again, the exact same example. Zero shot would be you just putting in the text, I had an amazing day, tell me what the sentiment is associated with this particular text. On the other hand, in few shot, you would actually show it some samples that you have already worked out. Worst movie, this is negative. Incredible, this is positive. Now I'm giving you a new piece of text. Can you tell me what the sentiment is? Especially with slightly more complex statements, the few shot approach definitely does better than the zero shot approach. One other thing, again, I think, to a certain extent, when we are writing slightly longer prompts and also doing more complex kind of tasks, we do go for this whole chain of thought way or style of prompting, where, you're kind of nudging it to do like a very step-by-step kind of a process instead of giving it the entire prompt in one go. So, for example, in few shot, if we have to use chain of thought, but again, do it in a very simple fashion without us having to put in too much effort into the prompt. If you were to go with few shot, you would give an example, also let it know how that problem is being solved, and then give a new example, and it will work it out in the exact same fashion that you have asked it to work out. You'll see, with one example, probably in a little while now with Gemini, all of this has become almost unnecessary now, to be really honest. We've had such really capable reasoning models come out in the past few months that um, you don't really have to even let it know how things should be worked out. This method still works extremely well, but with the very latest, most powerful models, all of this also is being handled internally. Now, there is one way in which, even without you giving the whole chain of thought, you can still prompt it to act in that manner, which is you just give it this additional prompt, instead of just asking it to do the solution, show me step by step how you are working through this, or just this one line, let's think step by step. This is like a additional maybe instruction along with your original prompt that really forces it to work out in that chain of thought manner. So if you do not really have time to show it proper worked out examples, you can just put in this additional statement and still get that chain of thought kind of behavior. Prompt chaining also is something that probably, if you're working like on a task that's like a lot more complex, and you keep needing to refine it or build on top of it multiple times, this is something that probably we must be doing to a certain extent. For example, this slightly longer prompt, take this text in Spanish, translate into English, then do some data analysis on top of it, format them as bullet points, but give me back the response in Spanish once again. Instead, if you put in this exact same prompt versus do it in a more broken up fashion, where, you just put in your text and say, read this, and it say, yes, I have read it. Then you ask it to do the translation, which it finishes. Then you ask it for the statistics. Then you say, create a bullet point list. And then, so, you're giving 5 different prompts based on the output of the previous prompt. And this is definitely going to give you slightly better quality result than, putting in the entire complex prompt in one go. So prompt chaining is something that works extremely well. Even with really simple tasks, supposing you just ask it to generate something for you and then say, okay, now convert it into bullet points, then once again say refine these bullet points, make them shorter, then say make this into a form that I can copy paste into a slide, makes your job like a lot more easier, and also gives you the exact kind of response you actually require. Meta prompting, better for, again, complex tasks that need like a lot more additional work to be done. And one of the tools in specific, in fact, Claude from Anthropic is like considered probably one of the best when it comes to the whole meta prompting techniques. This is where you build like a really large kind of template of sorts, or you actually give it like a completely worked out sample and then say, these are the exact steps I want you to follow, this is the style in which I want you to act, ask these specific inputs from the users, then do so and so task, then format it back. So you provide it almost like with an entire sample, and if possible a prompt within that also. So like a prompt within the meta prompt itself, if this was the prompt, this was the desired response, and then say give it back to me like, let's say, a JSON kind of a file. So this is very structure oriented, especially for coding related tasks or reasoning related tasks. And the you can like create like really long meta prompts, complete templates that are actually available online, and then using these you can get very good quality, very precise and detailed kind of responses. Now, for example, if you're trying to build like a system where you're probably trying to solve this math equation of sorts, this is the problem, this is how I want you to structure the solution. Step one, identify the coefficients and then do something in that order, and then print out the final answer. So depending on the discriminant, this is how. So if you give this particular meta prompt and then any equation you put in, it is going to work it out in this exact same format and also show you all this working. Once again, with the latest reasoning models, better than any meta prompt that we can think of. It's giving multiple variants of all these reasonings also automatically for us. But meta prompting is still one of those slightly more advanced techniques that helps you really craft great quality prompts. So that whole option of creating those templates and then putting it in, I'll show you. Claude, in fact, on their website has a lot of these templates that are available, so you can take a look and use that. And irrespective of the tool you're using, use those prompt templates to in fact do better quality prompting. One final aspect to creating the prompts itself is what sort of pattern or what sort of role are you asking it to play. This is something that again is very commonly done, where you specifically mention what role you want to act it in. Instead of just talking about, let's say, healthy diet, you say you act as a nutritionist, and then given the exact same prompt, you'll definitely get a better choice. So go for that role playing mode where you say, act as a therapist, act as a experienced coder with 15 years of programming experience, and now build me the code for this particular problem. You can also ask it to assume the role of the audience for which you're trying to create those responses. For example, if I'm trying to teach somebody from a non-technical background and I say explain machine learning to me, but assume that I have no background in computer science, the kind of response that comes out versus a general prompt, just explain machine learning to me, would probably be a lot more technical in nature. Putting in this additional information about the audience, maybe this is like a school level versus college level, or somebody with background versus without background experience, that really once again changes the quality of the response. This is one thing that you all can definitely try out, refining the question itself. So instead of going with the first prompt that we come up with, you put in this kind of a general statement first and say, whenever I ask a question or whenever I put in a prompt, first you suggest better questions and then ask me if I would like to use it instead. in fact, Perplexity is one tool that does this automatically and does it really well. What are possible alternatives to the question or the prompt you have put in? And then once it comes up with the alternatives, you can go ahead and ask it to work out one of those as well. Also in this context, let's say, you have put in a prompt into ChatGPT, just copy paste the prompt into Claude and say, is there a better way of actually creating this exact same prompt? It is going to give you a much larger, more specific prompt. Now you take that and put it back into ChatGPT. If supposing, ChatGPT happens to be your more preferred kind of choice, you will definitely get a better quality response. So refining the prompt itself is one approach you can take. So for example, if you say, should I join a master's, that could be your original prompt. But if you first preface this with this additional information, should I, also ask me additional questions, then it is also going to maybe give you alternate prompts. Is this in the context of joining a program, or what sort of program are you looking for exactly, and gives you better quality responses. One additional thing that you can do is ask the system itself to play that role of someone who's going to verify the questions, so that you have, like, the right kind of questions being asked. For example, again, if supposing, that same specific one that we saw from the previous one, should I take up a master's program, and you say, follow these rules, give me a number of additional questions, and then it can ask you, which sort of university do you want to join, or like what is your overall career goal in terms of taking up this particular program. So as it gives you all those additional questions and you keep giving answers, it will be able to refine the prompt and get you a more specific response in line to your original prompt. One other cool way of probably interacting with the models would be the whole flipped interaction mode. You don't ask it a question, you prompt it to ask you questions, and then based on how that whole conversation proceeds, it might really be able to zone in on exactly what it is that you need. For example, I put in something like, I'm interested in buying a smart TV. You ask me questions till you can determine a good option. So it will probably start off with, do you already own it? What features do you like about it? What cost range are you looking for? So it is going to keep asking me questions, and the more and more responses I give, it will be able to narrow down the choices. So especially where you don't even know what kind of questions to ask, it's better to ask the model to do that flipped form of interaction for you. So these are various patterns in which you could go ahead and do the prompting itself. Some more additional techniques, probably the slightly more advanced ones. These days we see a lot of models also being kind of you attach like another rack based system where you pull in additional information from your databases, so that the response is like a lot more specific. So we see a lot of retrieval augmented systems along with the LLM itself, and then knowledge prompting and self consistency kind of techniques. But I'm not going to go through these. Instead, actually show you examples of some of those previous techniques, maybe with a few different tools. This is one proper, well-written prompt, where a lot of these various aspects have been taken care of really well. Like we said, what role? So, act like a senior product, a marketing manager. Give it additional context. Some, new product has been released, and what is like the whole the particular business context around the question I'm trying to ask. The actual task itself, very, very specifically, we want to write an email. Now for this email, what is the format that we are interested in? Email will have probably, that subject, and then the starting, and then the conclusion part of it, and then little bit more detail, some sort of an example that we are showing. I want these metrics also to come out towards the end. I want like a thank you part of it within the email itself. And what tone do you want that particular response? Very clear, specific, business friendly, formal, whatever tone you would want. So as long as you make sure you build in all these elements into your prompt, you can get like really good quality response to the prompt itself. Probably, I'm going to take try to finish this up within some 10 minutes. I've wantedly not gone with ChatGPT because all of us probably do use that heavily, but instead, one use case each from some of these other really good major competitors that are available out there. Gemini from Google, it's been around, the first version from at least 3 to 4 years now, but their latest version, Gemini 2.0, extremely good in terms of very advanced reasoning capabilities. And these are like the 3 new modes that have become available to us very recently. And all these samples I'm showing now are all from the free tier of the products themselves. None of these are like paid subscription kind of models. So Flash Thinking Experimental, this is like a really cool feature to use if you would want to do advanced reasoning. Also allows you to do multimodal reasoning. You can put in your text, you can attach images, and then you can ask it to do visual reasoning on top of the image itself. Certain times, like we're aware, a lot of these LLM models, some portion of the very current kind of data that comes in maybe is not available as part of their training data sets. So if you ask them about something very, very recent, we do see this response that this kind of data is like not available to me, or I have only been trained on data before 2022. So with Flash Thinking, what happens, especially with this apps mode, is that sometimes there might be a lot more news articles around it that are not part of its training database. But when you activate the Flash Thinking Experimental with apps mode, let's say maybe like a new product was just released yesterday, you might have like a lot of information on the company websites or a lot of product reviews that customers leave. So this is going to go and access data from across apps. It could be YouTube, it could be certain websites, and then give you additional information which might not really be a part of its training data set as of now. Okay, so let's see one example of how it works. And these are specific, I would say, advantages with Gemini. One is that multimodal visual speech kind of support. This supports larger, so you can work with prompts where your responses are going to be really long, almost 100,000 token length windows. Gemini works with very, very easily. Extremely good for advanced coding and reasoning kind of tasks. So, okay. This was one prompt I just put in a little while back, just some image, ask it to act in that role of, maybe like a potential medical diagnosis, provided some brief history also. Notice this patch, it's, what do you think this is? It came out with a very good diagnosis, lot of differential diagnosis as well. So now we are putting in a prompt and also giving it additional information in the form of images. Although I would say this is probably not a recommended use case, especially medical kind of diagnosis. But let me show you one of these really cool advantages from the latest model. All right, so I'm just going to shift over from the slides themselves to my browser. Okay, and reshare. Let me share screen again. All right. So, this was just some website where I found some very tough partial derivative problems. I just took this part of it, or in fact, I just created like an image file out of it. Okay, this was the image file, a partial derivative problem, like stored as a JPEG. That's it. I didn't even have to type it out. Then went to Google Gemini. And instead of using their regular model, I went with the Flash Thinking Experimental. This is where a lot of advanced reasoning actually happens. So again, just to kind of save on time, I'm showing you prompts that I worked out a few hours earlier. So I just uploaded, that image file here. This is the image file, and said, please solve these with all the intermediate steps. This was the only prompt I put in, not even, any chain of thought, didn't show it any examples. And it is doing this entire thinking. User wants me to solve. This is the problem. This is the entire solution. Happened like in under a minute. And Flash 2.0 thinking experimental was able to work out all those sets of problems and then give me, the final solutions, which I went and cross-checked with that website, gave me the exact right kind of solutions. So, you just like, at least till now, especially with math coding kind of things, having to type out the prompt itself was also pretty tough, right? Now you can just capture it in the form of an image, upload the image here, and then put in that particular prompt, and it does an awesome job. And these are very tough math problems that are being solved extremely quickly and very good quality accuracy too. Okay. Then, after Gemini, the next one I wanted to show you all. This is one thing, that you all should definitely experiment if you already haven't. Claude from Anthropic. One reason why this whole company was formed itself was people who left OpenAI and wanted to form slightly more responsible AI usage kind of a product. So the data privacy and all are taken care of or handled more responsibly with Claude. Their strength is in terms of rewriting prompts. Whatever prompt you want to use in any of those other tools, put it into Claude, ask it to rewrite. It does like a much better job at it. They also have, this entire very good prompt library that is available, which you can make use of. So for example, if you're doing some sort of academic writing and you want to create like a nice citation, you can just put in this prompt. You don't even have to come up with the prompt. Put in your data, use the prompt from their system, and then ask it to create all the citations or the quotations for you, and it will do that. So this is like a really good resource that is already available. One other thing here is this particular link here again. Good Claude prompts that you can make use of. Supposing you wanted to act in that capacity of a meta prompt. There is like their entire official meta prompt. Oh, sorry, I'm going to the Korean version here. This other template that is available, where like a much larger prompt is actually been made available on that website. So you can use their meta prompt template and just make minor changes to the overall template and start using it by yourself. Okay, so moving on. Okay, one other probably very strong feature that you get from Claude is this whole concept of artifacts. This was a prompt I put in and said, give me a flowchart. I want to try to explain how an LLM works. So this was the first flowchart that it built for me. And I said, I'm not happy, like modify this a little bit more. And this was the other flowchart that it gave. So especially with Claude, you have this option or, this whole feature of what are called as artifacts, where anything that you might want to copy paste into another document, it could be an image, it could be code, it could be like much more detailed text. It gives you like a link that you can publish and also allows you to go and modify this at a later point of time. So these are going to be stored a lot more easy to copy paste into other systems as such. So Claude is extremely good, or probably, I would say its strength lies in creating both scientific, coding, and image-based artifacts that you can store permanently. They're there always with the link, or you can go copy paste them, into other formats as well. So, this entire flowchart, what is machine learning? Break it down into tokens, what happens at the various layers, then how is the output generated, and then the final formatted text was all built based on just like one single line of prompt. So this was the prompt I had used, and looking for demos that can explain, it gave me the whole text-based version of it. And then I asked, can you also build me a flowchart? And it did that right away. Try and wind this up now. I think, maybe I just have like a few more minutes. Right. One other tool, definitely please go ahead and experiment with it, Perplexity AI. Perplexity AI strength comes in because, it kind of combines search techniques with generation. It's as powerful a search tool as Google, and then also does ChatGPT like generation. So In terms of especially giving you additional prompts or related prompts to any specific question that you're asking, it does an extremely good job. So wherever you are into doing tasks that need a lot of research, and you would also want proper citations. So you want to avoid that problem of hallucinations. You want really verified information only to be a part of the response. Perplexity AI does a good job at that. Again, let me go to that. Yes. Okay, so this was the prompt again. Create a comprehensive report. I want case studies, facts, numbers on GenAI tools. It looked up 115 sources. It took me around some 5 minutes of time, excuse me, to build this entire response. So, all the key statistics for ChatGPT, then for Gemini. Everything after that, it also shows you, which sources it is used. So if you also ask for proper citations, in-text citations as well, it builds that. And like we said, one other really cool feature with this is it asks you very, very relevant questions that you can use, going forward. How can it enhance, discussions? How can it handle multi? So I moved on to classroom-based teaching, and it was giving me all these other prompts as well. Two other products that, again, definite tries. DeepSeek, which is known for its reasoning capability. Now, this was like this also, I'm not showing it in real time because it takes some 4 to 5 minutes to finish up the whole reasoning. I said use these digits to create 3 numbers so that their sum is like, x plus y is equal to z kind of a thing. And this is the overall understanding the problem. Tackling this, it is starting with smaller combinations, going on and on. This prompt like ran for upwards of 5 minutes for me, where it was trying out all possible combinations. So, just put in the prompt and the entire reasoning in that thinking mode is being shown. So I just put in, this other pattern here. What is the number in this series? And the whole thinking part of it shows up in real time. So whenever you're interested in reasoning or coding kind of tasks, probably DeepSeek is like a very good alternative. And then it keeps doing that for a slightly longer time, but gets to the response. The final one, really, really good reasoning, which was like just released like a couple of days back, Grok 3. For now, it's in beta and is available for free. Probably won't be the case in a little while. But even, with this also, if you see this, deep search mode. So you can use it in 2 different modes, either the deep search where it looks for relevant resources across the internet, or in the reasoning mode. So, depending on the question that you put and activate either the deep search here that shows up. I hope, you can see where my cursor is, or ask it to act it in that reasoning or thinking mode. And accordingly, it's going to create the response back for you. This is also maybe, one specific model that you have to be a little careful with. It gives you very uncensored kind of responses back. So in terms of, the safety aspect, probably, don't go to Grok if you are somebody who's very mindful of the kind of tone of response that keeps coming up, maybe, academic kind of things. But if you want lots of fun stuff, you want to roast somebody, Grok is like the best place to go. So I'm going to stop with that, so we have like some more time for questions or any clarifications on the content we have done. Okay. Because I'm almost out of time.
Thank you, Aparna. Thank you very much. I'm looking at the question list. I don't see a lot of questions. So team, if you all have any questions, feel free to put in the chat. One of the questions which you briefly touched was about, I'm just going to there. OpenAI recently released deep research. What's that about? So you touched it from the Grok perspective.
Yeah.
So similarly, DeepSeek,
Yes.
OpenAI also has that similar feature. I think they have given a nice little explanation about when to use it. It's much more deeper research when you're trying to do competitive analysis about a product tool or something. So instead of spending hours and hours of time on internet researching for all these things, they're trying to combine together and allow. It would take time. They've said like 5 to 30 minutes. It would take ChatGPT. So your default mode, not DeepSeek would be
Yes.
the choice for interaction. So that's what just wanted to chime in there. That's the only question I see. So Aparna, if you want to add anything to that.
One final aspect, maybe, especially with DeepSeek, because it's so good at that reasoning. But then, all of us do have these concerns with respect to data privacy. Is our data probably being stored on servers or going across countries? DeepSeek is like one of those cool models that you can actually download and install. So just the download part will require internet, but then you can use it as a local system only, where none of your prompts, because you're not even connected to the internet anymore, you don't have to worry about your data being shared with any other third party as such. So in that complete local installation mode, using an additional tool or platform called Olama, you can get your own DeepSeek installation on your local system and then use it very effectively for deep reasoning tasks. Does a very good job at it too.
Thank you everyone for joining. That's the details of our website. This recording will be posted into our YouTube channel like all other ones. And thanks again for joining the session.